Now that our grand refactoring adventure is over, let's get back to finishing up the To-Do app. Let's have another look at the TodoMVC. The feature we're going to implement is keep an eye on this space here as I add some items. You see? A little chevron appeared here, and this chevron is actually a checkbox in the unchecked state. I'll add a few more bars. And when I check just some of the items, it's still in the unchecked state, but when I check all of the items, it's in the checked state. And finally, it's a checkbox, so it can toggle all off and all on. It's a bit of a weird feature in my opinion, but we have to follow the spec here, so let's implement it. Now we could simply add a input type checkbox here. Actually, this is an array, so we need to spread it. But in my opinion, this is really a separate view of the to-do list model. Everything this checkbox is based on stuff that's in the to-do list model. So let's make it a view of that file instead. Let's open up to-do list and export const, let's call it all check. And like the other regular view, it takes a model and it returns the checkbox here, and we need to import the input. Import input from add Hyperapp HTML. Now I can go to the index and add this view. To-do list all check. To-do list model calculated from the state. And there we have it. Now, the first thing we looked at with this checkbox is it's invisible when there are no items. So let's solve that with a simple style declaration on it. In Hyperapp, the style prop can't be a string. It needs to be an object, and it takes style properties. And that's not too bad because most of the time you want to toggle style properties anyway, so working with strings is just a hassle. In this case, we want to toggle the visibility prop so that when model items length is a truthy value, that is to say it's longer than 0, it should be visible. Otherwise, it should be hidden. And there it goes. It goes away. What happens if we add something? Foo, it's back. Barbaz. Okay, the next thing was when they're all checked, we want this checkbox to be checked as well. Okay, so this is something that relates to the logic of to-do lists, and we moved all that out into its own file. So let's open that. And this isn't a transformation like the other functions are. This is just a simple question we're asking. And questions I usually prefix with is or get just to clarify. So this is going to be is all done. Not grammatically correct, but it follows my convention. It takes the state and it's going to be answered by reducing over the done property. So state done reduce all so far and me. If all so far were done and also I am done, then we return true, otherwise false, and we have to start with true or it'll never be true. Okay, so now in to-do list we have that function available on the to-dos import. So we could simply say checked is to-dos is all done. We can just pass the model in because the model has all the local state in addition to the actions. So it's gone. We say foo bar baz and we check them all in turn, and there we go. Now finally we want all of these to go back unchecked when we uncheck this master check, and when we check it again for them to all go back to checked. That's another logical operation, and it's a transform this time, so we say export const, we'll call it set all done state, and it returns same state as the old state, except the done item is now state done, and we're going to map each of them to whatever value we pass in here. So we ignore the input and just return value. Okay, now we can go to the to-do list. We can capture this value here. Let all done this. All done. And on input. All right, we need to make a proper action of it. Set all done by mapping it like we did with the others. map to-dos set all done. And now model set all done to the opposite of all done. Let's try this. Foo bar baz. Check them all. Uncheck all, check all, uncheck all, check all. This works. All we need to do now is, I want to show you one thing here. Now since we added a second view from the to-do list, we're calculating the model twice here, which is a little wasteful, especially for a function that gets called every time the state changes. If we were fancy, we would maybe memoize this. If we're quick and dirty, like I'm going to be now, we could just use the argument list here to calculate a value for this function. And we just, let's call it to-dos. To-dos. And here as well. To-dos. So this isn't a new argument or anything special. I'm just using the argument list as a place to insert a variable without having to wrap this in curly brackets and use a let. Probably I should have done that, but again, quick and dirty. There we go. That's the feature.